It's impossible. And me being the guy at the time, I was like, nothing's impossible. I vowed that if I was ever in a position of leadership, I would just try to do everything the opposite.
No one else was willing to do it, but you chose to make it better.
I think you have to fail as much as you win in those circumstances to navigate your way through.
But great leaders, like the one you just talked about, find a way to have peace, and they allow that to affect the external environment.
The only reason that we made it was because I had some incredible people. I try like hell to pay that forward every chance we get.
This is episode 3 of the Founder Pack podcast. And today's story is all about grit and transformation. Our guest Tom went from curious kid to Navy leader, learning discipline and building systems the hard way. Those hard-earned lessons brought him straight into business, helping turn JMARK from a company on the ropes to a thriving business of 20 years and counting. We talk about what it takes to play the long game, make high-stakes calls, and believe in something bigger than yourself. If you're into leadership, resilience, and the raw truth of building something great, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe, like, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Let's dive in. Well, Tom, thanks for being here today with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for letting me be a part of it.
Absolutely grateful that you carved some time for us. And it was recently Veterans Day, so I just want to say thank you for your service in the Navy. And I think it'd be really good for us to walk back a little bit in time and understand who Thomas Douglas is before the Navy and your journey into the Navy. So what was life like?
Well, it was a bit of a mess, actually. So I grew up in Bolivar and actually started working at the age of 7 at my aunt's Western Auto store there in Bolivar. So my job at the time was putting bikes together and cleaning red wagons and serving customers, but kind of learned the spirit of customer service in that small town environment and what it means to really take care of people and do a good job. And, they would get the call on a Sunday afternoon when the store was closed because somebody's battery had gone out in a car or the refrigerator died, and so we would all jump to and go take care of whatever needed to. So you kind of learn the fundamentals of what it means to serve and take care of people, and so that was the time in all the way through high school, and didn't really know what I wanted to do. Went to Mizzou for 2.5 years, joined a fraternity. It was fun, but that was about it. Not a lot of productivity came out of it.
What was your major?
Just business, general business major. Okay. Yeah. But I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. I had no passion. Nothing really got me excited. I even tried to change my major to Parks and Recreation at one point. I thought, well, if I'm going to party and recreate, I may as well learn how to do it professionally. That's right. That didn't work out really well either. So
I started, my business major was what I started with. Mm-hmm. And when I found out that I could tell a computer what to do, I was like, I'm changing to computer information science. That was my background. So I was general business at first and then transferred into computer information science.
Well, it took me a lot longer to find it. But it was really good, because when I was at Mizzou, partying, doing all the things that I shouldn't be doing, I finally decided I needed to get my shit together, and took a small stint working in construction, kind of some hard labor and hauling sheetrock and hanging gutter and doing all the things, and then joined the Navy and spent 4 years in the military. And there I learned some really important lessons. Obviously you get some humble pie from traveling around the world and seeing how fortunate we are in the United States and how good we have it. I actually stood watch with a guy one evening in Romania who I was like, man, have you ever thought about going to the United States and kind of the American dream? And he's like, I'd love to. And he's like, but it's impossible. And me being the guy at the time, I was like, nothing's impossible. Like, you can do anything you want. And he's like, no, it's really impossible. It's like, I'm the only one that has a job. I live in a 1-room house, and that's it. I support my wife and my 2 kids, and her parents and my parents all live in this 1-room house. And a plane ticket to come to the United States costs as much as I get paid in a year. I was like, whoa, that's a heavy story. And I mean, like, just bad poverty. And so you just have no idea until you see it, what it's like to be a part of something like that.
So the Navy really gave you a global view of different cultures.
Yes.
Different poverty levels. We think about poverty here. It looks totally different in other nations.
It absolutely does.
I've been on a lot of trips globally, and there's something that happens when your eyes get opened
yes.
to the amount of poverty some people live in. and the amount of opportunity we have in the United States to change our circumstance that other people in other nations don't have.
Just don't have. And one of the lessons that parallels that is that there's a lot of people that can live in those kind of poverty stricken areas and still be just happy as they can be.
Hmm.
And we live in the land of abundance, and we still find reasons to complain and bitch about circumstances and not be happy. And if they can be happy in that kind of an environment by surrounding themselves with the right things, the right people, the right attitude, there's something that we can take away from that I think would be helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah. What do you think that contentment is coming from, or how is that created?
I've thought a lot about this over the years, and I don't know that I've got a clear answer to the question, but my theory is that in the United States we do such a bad job of comparing ourselves to others and thinking that we have to have something that we don't in order to be happy,
Hmm.
rather than being happy first and then using that as the foundation to build our lives on. And I kind of think that it has something to do with that, and that fundamentally they're happy first,
Yeah.
and then there's the desires to be more, do more, experience more in life, rather than the other way around.
I like that. One of the things that me and my wife do at dinner every night is we go around the table and we ask our kids, "Hey, what are you grateful for?"
Hmm.
Right? And there's something that happens whenever we focus on gratitude
Yes,
that really sets you up to have a mindset of contentment.
I love
Because
that.
there's so much that we have to be grateful for, not only in this nation, but in our relationships, in our health.
Hmm.
I mean, you don't know how much you use your pinky until
You break
your
it.
nail
Yeah,
gets hurt,
yeah.
and I think that's just a really good reminder for us all to be focused on the gratitude and the good things. So when you were in the military, you got a global view.
Hmm.
What were some of the lessons that you learned, if you could boil it down to a few, that being in the Navy taught you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the gratitude thing was obviously a big one. I would say, in addition to that, how to be a good leader and how not to be a good leader. So I had a lieutenant in the Navy who I'll let him remain unnamed, but he was the biggest asshole in the world,
Hmm.
and I learned from him how not to lead people. I vowed that if I was ever in a position of leadership or a situation like that I would just try to do everything the opposite that he did. He always ridiculed people publicly. He always talked down to people. He always took the praises from the command when things went well, but
Hmm.
then blamed people when they didn't. He never gave you a sense of appreciation or gratitude in how he operated and the hard work that we were doing in the military. And so I think from my biggest lesson from that was like how to treat people well
Hmm.
and how to bring people along on the journey from wherever they are to wherever you need to go, and respect those things and respect people fundamentally. And
That's good.
that's changed. I mean, it's the heart and soul of what JMARK is today.
That's amazing. So when you find yourself in that situation where you're under the authority of a leader you don't respect,
Mm,
walk us through the challenge of that and how that impacted how you led others,
hmm.
alongside you,
Yeah.
how you set a great example, and how you eventually dealt with that authority chain.
Well, in the military, you just kind of have to suck it up. I mean, it's yes, sir. I mean, there's not a lot you can do, but under your breath or in your mind, you're thinking, I just can't believe this guy is actually
Hmm.
treating people this way. How does he think it's right, and how does he think it's respectful? And you navigate through that, and through the military, you gain rank, and you gain responsibility, and so you try to pay it forward. And I screwed it up before I ever got it right. I mean, because it's like anything else, you're experimenting, you're learning. And so when you have somebody who works for you, I had a guy that I'd worked with for years, but I gained rank before he did. And so I was supposed to ask him, tell him what needed to be done that day. And he did not like
Hmm.
how or what I'd ask him to do. And so, I mean, it just turned out to be kind of a tenuous situation for me to navigate through, and I didn't handle it well. But I learned a really good lesson that if I would have just started from the very beginning of, hey, I know this kind of sucks. I need you to deal with this thing. We're all kind of taking orders from above, and this is a responsibility I need you to take care of for me. And if I would have handled it that way instead of saying, hey, Matt, go do blah,
Yeah,
and kind of barking orders, like so many others around, then it would have come out totally different.
for
and
sure.
and so, I mean, I think you have to fail as much as you win in those circumstances to navigate your way through.
Yeah. There's this idea that through failure we actually get to learn how to do things the right way. And
Hmm.
you You hit on that a little bit. And I wonder, at least in my experience, when I have worked with people that are difficult to deal with,
Mm-hmm.
I've learned through failure, like yourself, that sometimes you have to ask questions
Mm-hmm.
to them to get them to realize their behavior instead
Mm-hmm.
of you telling them, the way that they're
Absolutely.
acting. How have you seen that play out in some of your leadership moments with people?
Well, we call them people puzzles inside a JMARK and in the book, and we can talk about that as we go along a little bit. But I think fundamentally, if your focus is to lead with respect and honor and treat people with respect, you find a way to navigate through those conversations. And questions is a great way to do it. And sometimes it's as simple as, "Man, did you mean that to come across so harsh? I mean,
Mm,
I just wanted to talk to you about something simple, and you're kind of biting my head off,
yeah,
or asking a question like, it just feels like you're really not in the team to win, like you're in it for other reasons. Are you distracted today? Is there something going on at home?" And oftentimes people change their behavior really quickly when you do
yep,
the right, ask the right questions. And to your point, it helps them to have a little bit of a self view in the moment. And you don't have to be ugly about it or hateful or point your finger. It can just be a simple question that changes the whole dialogue.
for sure. My dad used to always tell me, calm is power.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that when people are losing control of their ability to remain calm,
Mm-hmm.
if you can ask a really calm question that requires a answer that may have to make them realize that this is actually how I want to portray myself and this is actually what I'm trying to do in this moment,
Right.
it will bring the level of calmness in the room down.
Totally. You set the tenor of everything. And, one of the things that we talk about in leadership training and inside our whole organization is like in open company meetings, is that at any given time, everybody is dealing with some level of shit in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's our job as leaders to recognize when somebody's a little bit out of balance or a little bit out of whack, and then maybe take them aside or go get a cup of coffee and be like, "Hey man, what's going on in your world? You're not on par with who you normally are." And, we deal with kid problems, we deal with parent problems, we deal with health problems, we deal with money problems. I mean, when you're in business, it doesn't mean that the rest of your life goes away. And
Right.
so, we describe it as you have to surround the whole human and take care of everything that's going on with folks in order to support them and help to navigate through those. Because if you can pull out those challenging issues and help to navigate through it, or just be empathetic to the challenge that they're going through, then you gain a lot of loyalty and a lot of appreciation for helping somebody through those tough times. And
Yeah.
people don't want to throw their garbage, in your driveway.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ask the questions, oftentimes you can pull it out.
Yeah. Even just recently, there was this moment where someone that I work with you could tell that they were acting a little out of character,
Mm-hmm.
right? They were grasping for things, or they were always on the other side of a conversation, like always first to disagree and those types of things. And they were completely operating out of character.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, I could have gotten frustrated. And we as leaders, we can get frustrated really easy, and we could just kind of like smack it down,
Yeah.
kind of meet the aggression with aggression. But I had this moment where I was like, stay calm.
Mm-hmm.
You care about this person. You want them to do well.
Mm-hmm.
So picked up the phone, called them, and said, hey, I noticed the last few days you've been kind of operating out of your normal mode of character.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? How can I serve?
Mm-hmm.
And just that question
Changes the game.
changes the game.
Yeah.
They shared with me what was going on. They shared with me that there's stuff outside of work, like what you were just talking about, that was affecting their work. And we were able to really work through that together, and the relationship grew stronger as a result instead
Mm-hmm.
of divided more.
Yes.
And I think that is just a clear example of what you're talking about. And thankfully, that was the right time I got it right.
Mm-hmm.
There have been times in the past where, we're human. You allow your emotions to
That's
get the
right.
better of you. So while you were in the Navy, walk me through a moment, or if you could recall a moment where tensions were high,
Mm-hmm.
stress was high, someone needed to be calm, and someone chose to do that.
Um, so after the lieutenant that was such a bad leader, I had another lieutenant who was absolutely amazing. And it wasn't necessarily a single moment, but it was demeanor.
Hmm.
It was his shift in leadership style. He came in and everybody was used to being on edge and defensive and worried about when the other shoe was going to drop and how things were going to fall. And he came in and he just treated us like good people.
Hmm.
And it just, everybody's shoulders kind of went, he's the kind of guy we want to work for. He leads with respect, and he treats people with honor and with purpose. And sure, we dealt with conflict, and we had challenging things that we had to deal with, but he always did it in a calm way, to your point, and he always did it with respect first. And I'm here to help. How can I serve? How can I do the things so that you can be successful? And that shift in mentality lifted the spirits of the whole department, and we just came together, and then we could have fun and get things done rather than it kind of being one of those things where you're going to check the box and navigate through
That's
the day.
amazing.
Yeah.
So when I hear that, it brings my mind to this thing that I heard one time where when we as leaders, a lot of times there's leaders out there that the external will drive the internal,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if things are in chaos, all of a sudden we allow the external to make our internal mindset chaos.
Right.
But great leaders, like the one you just talked about, find a way to have peace in their internal environment,
Yes.
and they allow that to affect the external environment.
Yeah. I think leaders like that operate as a force field. That the chaos can exist all around them in the world, but they have the ability to protect their team from that chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And like, hey, our job is to do the next most important thing. What's the next most important thing? Don't let the noise get in the way. Don't let the
Yep.
stress and the burden of all the stuff. It's just chunk, 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 and that teaches you a sense of, that those external factors. If you allow them to control you, then anxiety rises. Attention to detail fails. All the things break down. But if you just focus on what is the next most important thing that I can do to solve the problem, then and remain calm and intentional about it, then the outcomes are always going to be better.
Yeah. Have you heard the concept? Sounds like you have, but signal to noise ratio.
Not like that, but
Yeah, but it's essentially what you're talking about, where you know leaders, when they can really focus in on the top three things or the top five things,
hmm
but then still keep a view of some of the noise, like an 80-20 signal to noise ratio,
hmm
because you got to still be looking down the line,
yes,
right? But you have to focus your efforts on what's important today.
yes,
And I just love that concept of that.
yeah.
So thanks for
It-
sharing that.
Well, I think that's exactly what he did in those circumstances, and great leaders do. Not everybody on the team needs to be looking downfield, but he does, and he
Hmm.
can protect us from those kind of things, so that we can concentrate on the things that we're supposed to do and serve the mission.
Awesome. So as you were transitioning out of
hmm
the Navy,
Yeah,
what did that transition look like? There's a lot of different people that have different experiences.
sure.
So walk us through your experience.
Well, I would say it was a little bit different. I was really fortunate. I had a guy who eventually became a senior chief that was over the top of me, and I was actually because I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. So when I was in the Navy, I started in supply, then kind of graduated into logistics and financial management, and we were dealing with getting materials from stateside anywhere we were deployed. So the Med, the Black Sea, the middle of the ocean, wherever we were. And it's a bit of a mess to deal, and really expensive logistically to get materials in that environment. And at the time, the Navy had a computer system, but they weren't managing min-max levels very well and doing these kind of things. So I decided to write a database that helped manage those things. And so I went back and I pulled a bunch of historical data, pulled it into a database, and figured out how we could front load some of the materials that we needed before we deployed, so that we didn't have to ship things overseas and deal with all the complicated logistics, and saved a lot of money, and did some really cool things as a result. Um, but I fell in love with technology at the time. I mean, just absolutely, that became my passion. And because my database got big enough, I had to upgrade my computer because it wouldn't run it well anymore. And
Hmm.
so you kind of geek out and you do
Yeah.
all the fun things associated with that. So I was getting ready to get out of the Navy, or I was actually getting ready to reenlist in the Navy. And the guy that became the senior chief, he was like, dude, you got to get out. He was like, there's a lot of people that can do what you do
Hmm.
in the military, but you're going to go out someday and you're going to run a company and you're going to do more for the GDP of the country as an entrepreneur than you'll ever do here
Wow.
in the military. And I was like, dude, you are crazy. Like that's not what I had no
That may be
desire.
the vision you see for me, but
Yeah,
the vision I see looks wildly different.
totally different.
Yeah.
And anyway, he really encouraged me to get out, and so I decided to go down that path. And before I did, my dad encouraged me to get certified, and so I got a couple of certifications before I came out, and then I applied in a couple of different
Hmm.
places in Springfield, and landed at JMARK in 1997 as a level one engineer. So I started in the company just as a level one engineer. I thought I was hot shit and realized I didn't know shit once I got
Amazing.
in the workplace.
I love that. A couple things I want to point out on that. The first is you did something that you knew needed to get done. No one else was willing to do it, but you chose to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
That is a quality that I see all the time in founder grade humans or entrepreneurs, people that can survey an environment and identify a need for efficiency or a problem to be solved,
Mm-hmm.
but not only just identify it, but seek to fix it.
Yes.
Have you always been that way, or did something change while you were in the Navy?
No, I think I always have been to a certain degree. I think it matured a lot when I was in the Navy. I felt more empowered, more in control of my life, more purpose driven. And despite the bad leadership I had a lot of really good leaders and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of really empowering people who encouraged me. Even a guy that I worked with, and he and his wife kind of adopted me when I was in the Navy and supported me as kind of a home away from home.
Amazing.
And I mean, just surrounded by great people. And so when you I think you need those experiences to feel like that you can actually do the thing. A lot of people feel kind of paralyzed, or yeah, I could
Mm-hmm.
try, but what good would it do, and those kinds of things. And especially in the military, you don't always feel empowered. But I had a group of people around me who were like, man, give it a run, see what
Yeah.
happens. What's the worst that could go wrong? And so, that I think that confidence, that belief, and then the foundations that I grew up with, and my parents believe in, you can do anything you
Mm-hmm.
want, that
Isn't that
foundation.
interesting how, like having a great support system around you
Hmm.
gives you not only the comfortability to try, but the comfort to know that you could fail and everything will still be okay.
It'll still be okay.
Yeah.
You can navigate through it.
And there's certain people that when they don't have that tribe, when they don't have that community to fall back on,
Hmm.
it's almost like that is an exponential factor that creates more anxiety with the idea of failure.
Hmm.
Because to them, failure means they lose everything.
Yes.
To me, and it sounds like to you, failure means I just don't have a day job for a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I still have my family,
Yeah.
I still have people that care about me, I
Yeah.
still have my friends, and so life is good,
Yeah.
right? And so that's really interesting. A cool correlation that I've noticed throughout the years is that people that have a great support system are more okay with the idea that they could fail.
I would agree with that, and I would add the determination to navigate through the failure. Because I think it takes both. You need the support system and all of that, but then you have to have the confidence that if you fail, you'll just do it again. Like you'll
Mm-hmm.
just try the next thing. I've told people over the years, and sometimes it scares the hell out of them. Well, if JMark just totally failed, we just start again. Like it's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
If it went belly up, we made a big mistake and we had to start over, we just do it. Everybody's
Yep.
like, would you? Like no, like don't fail.
We
Like we don't
can't fail.
we don't want to do
Yeah.
that. I'm like, well, if you're not willing to fail, you're not willing to fight for the next best thing. And sometimes that's going to result in failure. And sure, you don't want it to be the whole company and all of those
Mm-hmm.
kind of things, but you have to be willing to throw it out on the table.
Yeah.
And if it turns out to be, sour grapes, then you pick it up and you figure out how
Yeah.
to make wine.
Managing risk is a very important piece of being at the helm.
Hmm.
And, I heard it said one time that when you can walk through a door and the door doesn't close behind you, that's a great risk to take,
Yeah,
right? You can walk through the door, and if things don't work out, you just walk back out,
that's right.
right? But the ones that require more analysis, the ones that require a lot more team engagement and really understanding the lay of the land are the ones that when I'm walking through this door is closing behind
Hmm.
me.
Burn the boats.
Those are the ones that require galvanizing a team around you,
Hmm.
properly assessing not only what the vision could be, but what, vision looks like in different scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's really, really good advice for not only people like you, but people that are working for people like us,
Mm-hmm.
right? That they need to know that the pilots of the plane don't want to crash either,
Yeah, that's right.
and just because they don't have the full view from the front of the plane doesn't mean that the one in the cockpit isn't taking in all of the data, the numbers, and the view of the future.
Well, and that's why it's so critical to have the right executive team or senior leadership team around you, because my view, your view, we're never going to have it all,
Yeah.
and so you have to surround yourself with people that have different perspectives, different life experiences, that are going to think about things differently. And over the years, I mean, that's been one of the powers of our board. Is that we have a diverse group of people who are an external board who come in, and some are from the industry, some are not, and
Yeah.
and their goal is to challenge the status quo or what we're thinking and how we're thinking about it, because those other perspectives give us the ability to kind of protect the whole team, and have the wisdom of others to make sure that we're making the best choices.
Absolutely. So the second thing I want to really pinpoint as you're transitioning out of the Navy
Mm-hmm.
is someone believed in you,
Yeah.
even maybe when you felt like you didn't believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
How amazing is that this
Such a
this
gift.
person in some ways was like, don't enlist again,
Mm-hmm.
go do this, even though you can't see a clear vision for yourself. I see it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's obvious.
Yes.
If you could say something to that person today, what would you say?
I mean, I have, and I mean, I still talk to him some today. I actually got to speak at his retirement from the
Hmm.
military years later, and the short answer is thanks for believing in me when I didn't, because I didn't see it, I didn't think it, and candidly, at that point in my life, at least, and oftentimes when we're trying to figure our way, I mean, your vision is very short-sighted and
Yeah.
not long-sighted, and so it's really hard to see beyond tomorrow or the day after. But he had years of experience in the military. He had seen a lot of people come and go, and so he had a longer view than I did, and was able to lean into that. So it was a gift from the very beginning that I'll be eternally grateful for.
Amazing. Has that experience helped you see vision for other people that they have
100%.
not been able to see for themselves yet?
Yeah, I try like hell to pay that forward every chance we get. And it's not just believing in someone when they don't believe in themselves. It's helping them to navigate through the failure and continue to fight on the other side. Because
Hmm.
like we talked about, it's like that doesn't mean the game's over. It
Yeah.
just means it's a new down. We've got to hike the ball again and run. And so sometimes it's that, and sometimes it's picking people up, and sometimes it's like, no, actually you have the chops to be a really great leader. Let's
Yep.
talk through what that looks like, and
Yeah.
lifting them up.
I love one of the things that those types of relationships bring is the ability to let people focus on the fact that the journey is the best part of the adventure,
That's right.
right? A lot of times we look at these destinations of where we want to end up.
Mm-hmm.
And when we finally get there, there's a moment of sadness because you realize I'm no longer on the journey to get here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here,
Yes.
and this was a great view for 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
But now I'm bored.
Yeah.
And I think there's this element of being on the journey that sometimes we lack cherishing
Mm-hmm.
who we get to be on this journey with,
Yes.
what problems we get to solve. And we just need to look up every now and then and see this is where we're going, but the beauty is actually on the trail.
Yes.
And I love walking people through that because so many times when we're on the trail or we're on the path to where we're heading, it goes back to that gratitude moment.
It does.
You can get just inundated with all the negatives and all of the things you don't like about where you're at.
Yes.
But the beautiful thing is if we focus on the gratitude of where we're at with where we're heading in mind, it makes the journey so much better.
It's funny that you say that. So at our annual meeting last year, I told the company, I said, one day these are going to be the good old days,
Hmm.
and you're going to tell stories about, hey, do you remember when we dot dot dot,
Yep.
whatever it was, the thing we overcame, the thing that we fought to resolve and mature, or to get better at as an organization. Because you're exactly right, the journey itself is such a powerful part of the experience of everything, that when we lose sight of that along the way, then we can get so focused on that destination and lose track of
Yep.
of how to be happy as we're going.
That's good. So you're in JMARK,
Yep.
level 1 engineer,
Yep.
and you realize I love what I'm doing, but it could be done better.
Well, yeah, in a lot of ways. So I started to put in some processes and started to kind of build some what I would call best practices into the organization. And it was slow. I mean, it wasn't like a radical thing that we did. And as a result of that, it was a couple of years later, James, the original founder of the organization, put me in a service management role. And so, taking all the things that I had learned and the way I quickly became the number one revenue producer in the organization. And a lot of it was because I was following a routine. I was
Mm.
documenting my time. I was paying attention to details. And so we just implemented those kinds of practices throughout the organization. And James and the organization had gotten a little far out on their skis and got into some financial troubles. They had a CFO that wasn't helping things and not making good choices. And so James at a certain point he was like, man, you just want to buy it.
Mm.
Like he was having financial problems, family problems, all the things that you hear about that entrepreneurship brings into a household.
Yeah.
And
So I don't know James,
yeah.
but for the sake of what I'm hearing, sounds like we've got a moment of chaos.
Yes.
We've got walls closing in. We've got a leader who is having a hard time maintaining the ability to be calm,
Hmm.
assess the situation, and make decisions moving forward. And here you are.
Yeah.
You feel the same things, but you see a path forward.
Right.
What did you see in that moment that made you want to say, I can take this to the next level?
Well, fundamentally, I felt like that we weren't focused on one thing. We were trying to serve too many masters as an organization. James was, I mean, brilliant engineer, brilliant, developer. So he was into programming, he was into training, and he was into IT support. Back then, managed services didn't really exist, but we weren't really good at any one thing. We just spread out instead of saying we're gonna focus on this one problem until we get it right. We're not going to focus on another problem.
Signal to noise.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And so my belief was narrow the field. What would it take to do that? And so I went to my dad, went to my uncle, and another gentleman who got involved with the organization. The company had $250,000 worth of debt that we had to deal with, and so we had to renegotiate that, recapitalize the business, and then have enough cash flow to kick things off. So we downsized to 6 people from about 14 or 15
Okay.
at the time, and then just got really focused on what it meant to deliver services in a different way.
And how many years ago was that?
That was 2001. And then it was shortly after that, maybe 2002, that I decided that I hated the business model. Like, because everything was hourly and it was break fix is what a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people call it today. And so you would have a happy moment with your customer for just a blip of time, because they would be pissed because their computer was broken, and then they would call, and back then we couldn't do remote support. It was still
Mm-hmm.
rolling trucks. And so then they would be mad about how long it took before you could get on site and get something fixed. They would be happy in the moment that you would fix it, and then they would be pissed again when they got the invoice.
Sure.
And so we obliterated that, and we started what eventually evolved into managed services. At the time, we just called it like a level pay contract.
Yeah.
And so by 2006, late 2006, we had paid for the overhead of the company through those recurring agreements, and that gave us the foundation to begin to expand.
Amazing.
And made a couple of acquisitions along the way, and so up to 140 people now. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Great leadership. So, what would you say? You've got the signal to noise ratio that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
You changed the economics of the business
Mm-hmm.
from a perspective of break fix, bill by the hour to delivering value every month.
Yep.
That allows you to manage your bench, it allows you to manage your overhead, scale
100%.
properly. Sounds to me like the difference making here was that you were doing the work necessary to be able to allow scaling to
Correct.
be your friend, not your enemy.
That's exactly right.
So, were there any other things that you were doing to lay this foundation to be able to scale other than the ones you mentioned?
Well, I think fundamentally, I mean, you have to know your numbers inside out, upside down, and backwards. And I think a lot of people ignore that. But when you get a finite amount of money in order to make a business run, you've got to figure out how to stretch it as far as you can go. And I think one of the challenges that founders have in today's world, you think about, like, especially what's going on with AI and the big dollars that are being thrown around. You have these big funds and these big rounds that are thrown at founders, and they're like, just go do the thing and we'll worry about the money.
Hmm.
And I think that's actually bad advice. I think founders need to understand how the business model works, where the dollars go, so that you can understand how to scale it properly. Because if you
Yeah.
don't understand how the business scales and where you create value, and what's the product market fit, and what are people actually going to pay,
Hmm.
in understanding your market as it relates to those things, then I think that founders can get kind of disconnected. So I think there's a real gift in having to bootstrap a business
Yep.
from scraps and from nothing in order to turn it into something, because it gives you that appreciation for every dollar that I invest into sales needs to at least get me a buck 10, or at least get me a
For
buck
sure.
25 in return. And so you learn to measure those ratios and how you're building the business. So
Yep.
100% it teaches you how to scale well and how to invest in the future of the organization. And you go along the way and you learn about, well, at some point you want to try to build some cash reserves.
Hmm.
So I tell our team on a regular basis that winter is always coming.
Yep.
We have to be prepared
It's
for
not
those.
a matter of if, it's a
And
matter of when.
it's just when.
Yep.
And so if we just run on those razor thin margins and we're not saving for the rainy day, we call it keeping the business safe. Like,
Hmm.
it's a safety factor that has to be built into the organization, and we actually have a formula that we use to
Love that.
manage cash, and that gives us permission. So when we've achieved those numbers, then we can go invest and we can do
Yeah.
those
Then
things.
you've got margin to be
Yes,
able to innovate.
yes.
And for our business at Midwestern, we have very similar metrics that we
Mm-hmm.
set up, and we set this system called stability and longevity.
Mm,
And those are our KPIs that we have to hit.
mm-hmm.
Those are our cash reserve goals, margin goals, growth goals, that we monitor on a weekly basis.
Yes.
And you have to. And early on in our career, we would do it at, like, okay, we do annual forecasting once a year.
Yeah.
Okay, we can't do that. We need to do it now twice a year.
Mm.
Now we do it every quarter, and now we're like every month.
Yeah.
And I imagine there's going to be a day where we get to bi-weekly,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the closer you are to managing those KPIs, the closer you are to managing those numbers, the better chance you have to make pivots when necessary.
Yes.
And I think that's just a really good thing for founders to know. And I love that you talked about bootstrapping versus raising money,
Mm.
because I think one of the fundamental things people don't realize when they see so-and-so just raised $50 million or this or that,
Mm-hmm.
like, at that point, you're IPO or bust,
Yeah.
right? Like, the
Yeah.
only winners in that scenario are if you make it to the public markets.
Mm-hmm.
When you're bootstrapping a company, you can win in the first week
Yeah.
if you're profitable.
Yeah.
And I think those are things that are really interesting for people when they see the headlines. They don't always see that, yeah, taking on that money is great, but you're going to have to pay that money back one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
It's debt.
Yeah.
It'll either convert to equity into an unprofitable business and you go out of business, or it converts to equity in the public markets.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's your advice for a bootstrap founder?
Mm-hmm.
How do you get started? How do you focus on making a profit first and not having to get over your skis like your predecessor did?
Well, it's a really good question, a really hard thing to answer, I think, and it obviously would depend on the business. But I think one of the fundamentals is to make sure that you've got the right ecosystem around you. The only reason that we made it was because I had some incredible people,
Mm.
to include my wife, who helps with the books,
Yeah.
and to this day. But I had other entrepreneurs that were helping me to navigate through that. My dad, who was an investor, was helping to navigate through it. Had another gentleman who was an investor at the time who was brilliant in financial management that helped us to figure some of those things out. And then later, a gentleman that eventually became a board member for us helped us to really mature the business model to the next level, so that we could easily measure margins and we could do those things. And sure, could we have gotten there? Would we have gotten there? I think so.
Yeah,
But when you have those people, I mean, it just shrinks time
for
for you.
sure.
And so the goal is, how do you find I call them ninjas and wizards. How do you find those ninjas and wizards that you want to be around you,
Mm.
that shrink time in the development of the business, so you don't have to learn the hard way?
Yep.
You can take those lessons and pay them forward and get them implemented.
I think that's great. And I think what some people don't realize is that people out there that are ninjas and wizards, they love
They
being
love to
ninjas and
help.
wizards,
They love to
like
help.
they love to help, especially when they see someone who's got what it takes
Hmm.
to go through what they've been through.
Yes.
And I think that is a heuristic maybe that I've seen is that people that have done more than you will encourage you.
Hmm.
People that haven't will find ways to keep you from doing more
Hold you
than what
back.
they're doing.
Yeah.
And so finding the people that have done amazing things with their career, not only just in business, but with their families and
Hmm.
their marriages, like those are the type of people you want investing into you.
Yes.
And it sounds like you had that. I know I've had that. And I'm still looking for those people to invest in the next stage of where I'm headed.
100%. Yeah, we're always looking for those people that are going to pour into your life, and you're right. They're excited about it, and I think, I mean, maybe it's a little bit far fetched, but I think that when most people, not all, but when most people achieve a certain level of success, they feel a sense of responsibility to pay it forward,
Mm-hmm.
because they've been given some gifts and they've had some breaks and they had somebody pour into them, and
Yep.
so most people really want to lean into that next opportunity for somebody and to see them blossom and do great things.
Especially when they see themselves.
Yes.
Like I can look back at myself a decade ago
Hmm.
and I can look at certain people and be like, man, you remind me of myself.
Hmm.
And you're the type of person I want to invest in.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that that's just a really good thing that you said there is that we're eager and willing to invest in the next generation of
Oh, that's what
leaders.
you're doing right here is
Yeah.
investing into that generation
Yeah.
and sharing some nuggets of gold with people that are trying to build a business.